So it's officially been a year since the iPad 10 was released. I feel like this got mixed reception to say the least when it was originally released, but now that the price has come down and there's often discounts on this tablet, should you consider buying one? Well, let's delve into this. Now, at the time of recording, the iPad 11 hasn't been released, and this part of the video could either age horribly or really well, but there's not been many huge signs pointing towards a new base iPad this year, so this will actually be the first year since 2017 where there's been no new base iPads, which is why I'm sure this re-review is going to be even more relevant because the iPad 10 is still the latest base iPad you can buy. And in the off chance I'm completely wrong and the iPad 11 conveniently releases right after I drop this video, well then I'm sure there's going to be those looking for the iPad 10 on clearance. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. So let's begin with the design of this iPad, and this very much was a huge refresh for the base model because before this, we had a design from 2013. Yes, Apple was recycling the same old iPad Air 1 chassis year after year, but finally, the iPad 10 gave us a new design. Now, if I'm being honest guys, it's not really new because this in itself is a design from 2018, but either way, it does help this iPad still look like any other modern iPads, and it's definitely aged well design-wise. The icing on the cake though has to be the bold and saturated colors. We honestly need more Apple products that come in fun colors like these because I've had enough of the pale crap. I mean, how exactly is this blue? Anyways, moving to the display on the iPad 10, this is where some of the shortcomings are a little more apparent. Now, the display itself is identical to the iPad Air, it's 10.9 inches. It's LCD with a max brightness of 500 nits. This also has True Tone and 264 ppi, and also fingerprint resistant coating. The main emissions, however, are no P3 support, the display itself is not laminated, and also there's no anti-reflective coating. Now, I'm assuming out of those emissions, most are probably put off by the fact the display is not laminated. And I admit this does suck on older base iPads. It definitely was something you could pick up on when using it, but Apple's done some magic here with the iPad 10 where it's actually not that noticeable on this. Now, I'm not going to claim you can't completely see it because if you look for the air gap, yes, it's there. You can very much see it, but I will say you're more likely to forget it's there on the iPad 10 and it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. So that's awesome, guys. But the emission that personally bothers me is the anti-reflective coating. Now, I can understand why the display is not laminated because ultimately it's cheaper to repair and that's essential for parents giving these to kids who manage to break everything, but why leave out the anti-reflective coating? Considering brightness on this iPad isn't really that high in the first place, if you're somewhere where there's a lot of bright light, aka near a window, the display becomes kinda unreadable, not gonna lie. Now, using a screen guard does fix this to an extent, but come on Timothy, does it really cost Apple that much more to put a simple coating on this base iPad? If it was here, I would not have much to complain about, and yes, that means I have no issues about this being 60Hz. I can look past that, but the super reflective display sucks. Now, moving on to the performance, we have the Apple A14 with 4 gigs of RAM in this, which is identical to the iPhone 12 and iPad Air 4, and surprise, surprise, I've had zero issues. I know the chip in here has been down throttled, but because Apple's chipsets are so freaking good in the first place, I really have not picked up on that when it comes to regular usage. And it's perfectly fine for checking on socials, browsing the internet, and also watching the occasional movie. You can also push the A14 and do light video editing, for example, but let's be honest, most are not using the base iPad for that purpose, so when it comes to regular usage, this works completely fine. And for students wondering about how their workflow is going to be on this, my brother does all his schoolwork on the iPad 9, and he's never had an issue, so the iPad 10 should be completely fine for most. He actually also never picks up on the air gap when writing with the Apple Pencil, so yes, that's a non-issue as well. I'll get to the dongle situation soon, but overall guys, performance-wise, it's great for most users. Another awesome thing about the base iPads are the endurance because, guess what? When you get the bare bones experience hardware-wise, there's not a lot pushing the internals, And so as a result, you easily get upwards of 10 hours of screen on time. Those are pretty insane numbers for a tablet. And so if you're a power user, you can comfortably get through the day with this base iPad. Now, talking about accessories, this is again where things kind of fall apart for the iPad 10, because this, for example, supports Apple Pencil 1, which honestly wouldn't be a big issue if, of course, the charging method wasn't stupid. If there was a USB-C pencil that plugged directly into the iPad, I would be fine with that. The keyboard situation, however, is a bit disappointing. So unlike every other iPad that happily supports the good old Magic keyboards, this iPad has a special Magic Keyboard folio, which for one, only comes in white for whatever reason, and white isn't the best material for a keyboard made out of a cloth-like material because it gets dirty real quick. But on top of this, we have a stupid stand at the back, which I'm not a fan of, and the price tag is insane for this, so ultimately I would go with what Logitech offers for less, but I do wish this base iPad also supported the superior Magic Keyboard. Now, quickly touching on the cameras, there's not much for me to say here because who actually cares about iPad cameras? Are you that dude at birthday parties with your big ass iPads? I hope not. And so when it comes to scanning documents, the rear camera does the job and the front-facing camera being landscape is nice, though as a result we got this stupid dongle, so I don't think it was a fair compromise. Center stage is pretty awesome though, and you also get 4K video via the rear camera for those who want to record videos on an iPad for some reason. And yeah, it's just fine camera-wise, there's nothing huge to complain about, and it doesn't do anything revolutionary in this aspect, and I'm not expecting that to be fair because again, who's actually seriously using iPad cameras? Speakers are a huge upgrade here compared to older iPads. It's a stereo pair and that makes a big difference, and mics are also great on this for calls. Now, Touch ID is very reliable on this iPad. I prefer it over Face ID, not gonna lie, because when it comes to the iPad Pro, I often block the front-facing camera when holding it, so in my opinion that's an advantage these iPads have. Wi-Fi speeds have been fine. I was having some issues at launch, but things have stabilized now, and Bluetooth is super reliable on this. Finally, I do want to mention that much like the iPhone 15, this does have a USB-C port that has USB 2.0 speeds, and I don't care. I would be lying to you guys if I said this actually made a difference to my life because I never ever transfer anything with my iPads. This port's only for charging and so it really makes no difference to my life. But if you are transferring things from a drive pretty often, then yes, you should probably get a higher end iPad instead. Now on the whole, my stance on this iPad hasn't really changed to be honest, because if you were given this product, I think most would be happy with it. It isn't a bad product at the end of the day, but my issue lies with the pricing, which hasn't changed for the most part. Here in the UK, for example, I've seen it drop to £439, which isn't too bad. It's definitely a lot better than the retail price of £500. That was a major yikes, but it's still too expensive to be a base iPad. The iPad 9, which is still available through many retailers, can be found for £300 or less, and so even with the discounts, the iPad 10 still is not worth getting over the iPad 9 that offers better value. And after doing some research, the iPad 10 has not seen major discounts in the US, and at the end of the day, for this kind of price, you can find refurbished iPad Air 4s and 2020 iPad Pros that are much better buys. Now, I guess what I say at the end of the day doesn't matter because apparently the new design has done wonders and miraculously people are buying the iPad 10 in huge numbers. So clearly people only care about fun colors and will pay anything to get that. But jokes aside, I get why it's doing somewhat well because for those who don't want to fuss around and look for deals and also take the gamble on used and refurbished products, if you go into an Apple store and look at all the iPads they sell, you're likely going to walk out with the cheapest 11-inch iPads, which is this. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.